Oh, policy over politics is a interesting sort of a question. There's a saying that a friend of mine used in a speech one time, and he said, it's seek the truth, come whence it may, cost what it will. The Georgia public policy does not have a motto, but if it did, that one would fit. I was advised by one or two folks to don't do this. This is a far right bunch of nuts. And after investigation, I found out these were not nuts. This was the most logically organized, get to the facts organization I've ever been associated with.
There's a lot of politics in policy. Good policy makes good politics, but good politics does not necessarily make good policy. We've always been sort of a center-right state, conservative fiscally, that kind of thing. And what we wanted to do was to make sure we were getting enough bang for the buck.
I agree 100% on putting pocketbook issues over social issues. I know it's very important to people on both sides, but you have to make sure that the trains run on time and the government operates and it has the policies that attract business and has the policies that make sure that taxation is fair for all citizens and things like that. And I would encourage my fellow Democrats to be open to all ideas and don't be afraid to sit down and talk and listen. And you're not going to agree each and every time, but it's good for the discourse that occurs. And it is long overdue.
The Georgia Public Policy Foundation works because it is policy based on research and evidence. And one of the things that I always appreciated and liked about the foundation is maybe you didn't like the outcome, maybe you wish the outcome was different, but because it was fact-based and evidence-based, it was tough to fight the credibility or question the credibility of the foundation. So it really was taking politics out of it and what is good evidence-based, research-based policy. And that's what the foundation's been for 30 years. It's been a place you could go to get good policy in a world that's full of politics.
We worked with Governor Miller on privatization, making the state more efficient. The state, for whether it's Democrats or Republicans, we've always had fiscally conservative leadership. So I'm very proud that over at that time, Georgia has remained one of the few states that have a AAA debt rating. So we've been very fiscally sound.
There's been great advocacy for tax policy, which much has been implemented. We've had many tax reforms that have found their genesis at the foundation because that discussion and the thoughtful analysis, fact-based investigations come up with good results. I
think that public officials should quit being so thin-skinned. I mean, Sam Nunn once said that politics in Georgia was a contact sport. Well, it is a contact sport, but that's what makes good policy.
We're in a hyper-political environment where, it's shirts versus skins, it's right versus left, it's Republican versus Democrat, it's conservative versus liberal. But at the end of the day, I do believe when you are talking about the education of our children, when you're talking about the economic opportunities that can transform communities, it's not partisan. It really isn't. If you want to know, you can go to a place to get good information. The Georgia Public Policy Foundation is it for Republicans and for Democrats.
And we have over the years worked closely with anyone, no matter what your party or affiliation. We're interested in ideas. A great example of that was criminal justice reform, where we were working with groups across the political spectrum, probably with people we don't agree with on many things, but we did on criminal justice reform and had great success in passing a series of reforms that became a national model. 33 states copied what we had done, and that led to reform at the federal level. When 2018 they passed the First Step Act, which was probably the greatest criminal justice reform passed in the last 30 years.
Ideas have consequences, and if you have a good idea and you can move with it, and you can talk to people with it, and it holds up to give and take, then you win.
The word integrity comes to my mind. If we maintain our integrity and our dedication to the truth and the facts as they develop, we know more facts now than we did 18 months ago. But the facts of 18 months ago were just as factual as we could get. Should we stick with that? Of course not.
Eventually, facts are going to carry the day. You may have to keep shouting it from the rooftops. It may be kind of like bass fishing. You got to drop the lure in front of the fish 7 or 8 times before it finally strikes. But eventually, facts are going to carry the day, and that's what the foundation has done and is known for.
I see the Georgia Public Policy Foundation become even more of a force when it comes to making policy. And going forward, it's going to be even more apparent that Georgia Public Policy Foundation is the go-to place to have good policy implemented.
The foundation has always been pushing for less regulation, more transparency, and a strong foundation, again, of workforce, of infrastructure based on conservative principles. And they've been at the table now for 30 years. You look at the opportunities that have come to urban, suburban, exurban, and rural Georgia. It's transformative.
I think the comfort and trust to be able to be in a conversation and know that your opinions are valued and respected, I think that safety zone that the foundation has established is going to continue to foster good public dialogue.
I think the future's bright because we always need a place to go to get good policy, good fact-based and evidence-based policy. We need it, particularly now. I mean, there's certainly a crisis in confidence in who do you trust? Where do you go to get good information? Where do you go to get good data? The Georgia Public Policy Foundation is ground zero on good information and good fact-based data.
One of the things that I think is wrong with the country is that everybody screams at each other rather than listening to each other. And by listening to groups like the Georgia Public Policy Foundation, you're not going to agree with them all the time if you're a Democrat, but you are going to agree with them many times more than you think you will. The Georgia Public Policy Foundation was really the first group that emerged as a state think tank. And what they did is they took on controversial issues for discussion and then sought to see if there was a way that the ideas that were opposing could be formed into a common good. I think the greatest effect they had and have had is that discussion and trying to come up with a common solution rather than a tribal solution that I see so much now in politics.